Hello and welcome to a look at the week ahead through Vedic astrology for the week beginning the 26th of February 2016 on to the 4th of March 2016. You know, confidence is growing. You're feeling less doubt and more like you're beginning to be able to integrate a key piece of a deep and perplexing puzzle. But is it good to be too confident? Well, no, it's never good to be too confident, because then sometimes we become very egotistical about a certain point. And when you think you know everything, can you really learn anything, right? Probably not, because your head is so full of self and what you think you know, and then you're inviting in that one little thing which you don't want to have happen, which is the universe stepping in and showing you something that you don't want to know. But if you want to know the things that you don't know, I had to get that one right, because I don't know how to say it, so I have to think about how to say it. But if you want to know the things that you think you know, but that you don't really know, right? If you're accepting of being shown something, it's probably a simpler way of saying that, then things will always tend to flow more smoothly. The important planets on the agenda this week are Jupiter and Mercury, right? So let's talk about Jupiter. Jupiter is that higher sense of wisdom, that spiritual sense, right? That spiritual sense, that intuition, that wisdom that we need in order to expand, because Jupiter is the planet of expansion. Well, some people would say Mercury is that lower intelligence, but it's not a lower intelligence, right? It's that aspect of mind that you need for the day-to-day understanding. Mercury gives us that capacity to differentiate between things, to really take a look more deeply and see if we truly understand something. So this is a week of adjustment. As long as you're willing to learn that things are going to flow rather smoothly for you, right? You will learn some different ways of integrating the little pieces of the puzzle that you've been working with so far. You'll have a growing sense of confidence in terms of dealing with them. You'll be able to get rid of the concept of practical steps that you need to take in order to make something happen, and things will just begin to happen more naturally for you. But that moment that you begin to think that you know absolutely everything about it, well, that's the moment that you're going to be taken on a ride and shown something that you absolutely don't know. So a lot of the planets this week are in a greater level of strength. The Sun especially, because Jupiter is in Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra. And when the Sun is weakened, then what happens for Jupiter in Uttara Phalguni is it doesn't have that sense of confidence, that belief in itself to really begin to champion a cause, or to, you can also use the analogy, if one is not strong in oneself, how can you work with other people? Because Uttara Phalguni is about the prosperity that comes from taking your gifts and the gifts of another individual and putting them together, or the confidence that comes from really connecting with yourself very deeply and understanding how you work. Well, the good news is what's helping with this growing level of confidence is a stronger Sun. And that's really going to help you, especially if you're willing to be a little bit flexible. Make some adjustments. See both sides of a situation. That's something that's really going to help you. The Sun is going to be transiting at the beginning of the week, Shatabisha Nakshatra. And then towards the end of the week, it will enter Purva Bhadrapada Nakshatra. And the Sun, in connection with Jupiter, is going to take you on a learning experience of analyzing little bits and pieces of information as they come to you from out of the mist and the fog that you're having to sort through, right? And as you do that, a deeper sense of knowing is going to dawn on you, that's going to give you the strength to feel If it's good information that you're wanting to hear, it's going to inspire you. If it's a difficult truth that's hard to digest, well, it's going to give you the capacity to do something about it, make the adjustments so that you can do something about it. Equally this week, we've got Mars. Mars now in Anuradha Nakshatra, forming an aspect with Mercury. What is Anuradha about? Anuradha gives us the capacity to see things correctly, to have the right relationship with something. Sometimes we get too caught up in something to the extent that we're almost completely merged with it, right? And merging with something out of a sense of devotion can be a very good thing, but you have to also have the right relationship with that thing that you're merging with, right? You can't not have if you lose yourself, right, then you're not having the clear perspective of what you're trying to gain information from. Let's use an example. Let's say you're devoting yourself to a cause. Well, you could overly identify with the cause so that you're so caught up in what it is that you're doing. If you're working with another individual, you could be completely influenced by them to the extent that it's hard to separate your stuff from another. That's when Anuradha is working bad. But this week, the energy is going to be in your favor with it. It's going to give you the capacity to see the truth of something. And when you see that truth, you're going to be motivated to take action to the extent that it's something that's just going to flow effortlessly, and you will surrender to the process. The impulse will just naturally come to you as per Mars, and you'll know exactly what to do with that particular impulse. As Mars is forming an aspect with Mercury, which will start at the beginning of the week in Dhanishta Nakshatra and end at the end of the week in Shatabhishak Nakshatra. So with this particular energy, it's going to be one where the more information dawns on you, the more you're just naturally able to do something. But there can be a period towards the end of the week where things get a little bit confusing. You have to sort through things, but you have the capacity to do that. Once you do that, you may have a few things that come to the surface that you maybe don't feel that happy about, but there's the strength and devotion that you have to put energy towards something, even if it's something ultimately that you don't feel that happy about. You'll recognize that it's something good. Sometimes like taking medicine, even though the medicine doesn't taste good, it's something that ultimately can do good for you. Also this week, Saturn in Jyeshta Nakshatra, forming an aspect with Mercury as well. So Saturn in Jyeshta Nakshatra can initially give that capacity to see things with a very clear perspective, so that one is able to, again, to just kind of naturally flow with something as per Mercury in Dhanishta Nakshatra, because Mercury is also the ruler of Saturn's nakshatra, so it will give the natural flow, right? You're able to see things with perspective, and things are just naturally flowing through you. Prosperity is just naturally coming. But the moment that your ego comes into something, or the more you become too stuck on a practical way of dealing with the situation, that's the moment that you're going to need to be shown what needs to happen next, what adjustments you need to make on the fly in order to sort through things, right? And some of those adjustments you may not want to make. You may want to stick with what feels tried, true, and familiar, but you're going to need to make an adjustment regardless. Mercury this week, so a lot of interaction between Mercury and Jupiter to several different planets. Mercury this week is also forming a deepening aspect with Jupiter. All these aspects are waxing aspects. They're getting more intense. So Jupiter in Uttara Phalguni Nakshatra. So as this information that we're talking about with the Saturn aspect to Mercury and the Mars aspect to Mercury, as you begin to hit those foggy spots, Jupiter is going to give you the wisdom and the intuition and a deepening level of confidence that you do have the skills with which to deal with that. Equally, Venus, also transiting through Dhanishta Nakshatra this week, will move you from a perspective of, in terms of the right things to do within the physical plane, as you're receiving the input from Jupiter, from the spiritual level, from the deeper level of wisdom. Venus is going to give you the worldly wisdom, the practical steps that you need to take along the way. And those practical steps over the course of the week are just going to become more natural. It's not going to be forced. It's not going to be methodical like it's going to initially be at the beginning of the week. Instead, it will become more natural, just a natural flow. That comes to you from Venus. And Venus and Mercury are traveling together in the sky. So mixed in with this too, where there are connections with an individual that have, somewhat gone awry, as per the Uttara Palguni energy, what can happen is a way to sort through that begins to be shown to you. Sometimes that doesn't necessarily involve communicating with the individual. Sometimes that just involves practical steps that each individual party is taking, which is really more beneficial for the situation as a whole. Because destiny has a greater plan for us than our rational mind can many times come up with on its own. Saturn this week, too, is going to be forming an aspect with Jupiter and equally with Venus, right? So again, growing confidence as long as you're willing to learn, seeing things from a higher perspective, because Saturn and Jeshta, if you're patient with the process, it's going to give you a very clear perspective on a situation. Jupiter and Uttara Palguni will go, okay, sure, I'm willing to learn so we can move forward with this particular process. I'm willing to learn so that adjustments can be made. I'm willing to see another side of the situation than the one I've been kind of stuck on, because I've been having to kind of force a sense of confidence rather than actually feeling a sense of confidence. And so I recognize that, making an adjustment or making a change doesn't mean that I'm any less wiser. It actually means that I am much wiser, because I'm willing to learn. The more intelligent you think you are, the less wise you are. But the more stupid you think you are, the wiser you become, I think. Maybe. Okay. I think you know what I'm saying, though. The more that you think that you know, then the less you actually know, really. And the less that you think that you know, the more you stand to learn. And Saturn and Jupiter interacting in that manner is going to bring you a very deep sense of perspective with that. Saturn equally is forming a similar aspect with Venus, that over the course of the week, through, really taking that information that Saturn is drawing down, really taking that wisdom that it's bringing into the situation, you're going to learn some practical steps for dealing with the situation that, even though you're having to deal with the challenge initially, in terms of understanding how to cope with it, you'll be able to kind of fine-tune things so that things are just flowing naturally for you. You'll know the appropriate steps to take. So leading up to an eclipse, I think maybe next video, we're just going to focus on the eclipse. We're not going to focus on the other aspects leading up to it. We're going to talk purely and simply about the eclipse, and we may even do that one a little bit earlier than usual, because that's an energy we need to prepare ourselves for. So be ready to look out for that, I should say, but just kind of mentioning to you that it's a good week for a deepening sense of confidence. What's been confusing is beginning to clarify. The key word here is learning a sense of surrender rather than a sense of ego. As your confidence grows, don't let it get bolstered or boosted to the extent that it becomes egotism. Right? Instead, always be willing to bring in more information. Always be willing to learn more. Always be willing to work with yourself. Always be willing to be involved in a co-creative process with the universe that's showing you the way to go. You just have to pay attention to it. So if you want to schedule a consultation with me, just to point out my link below to my astrological services page. Until next time, people, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.